Today's guest is someone who embodies the resilience and raw honesty it takes to turn pain into purpose. Cole Grace is a combat veteran who served in Iraq as a National Guard combat engineer, tasked with some of the most dangerous missions like IED route clearance and convoy security. But Cole's story doesn't end on the battlefield. After returning home, he faced a silent war within, battling undiagnosed trauma, chronic physical pain, and eventually addiction. It wasn't until a pivotal rehab stay in 2017 that Cole began uncovering the deeper layers of his story, including the impact of childhood emotional neglect he hadn't previously recognized. Through deep introspection, trial and error with healing modalities, and a relentless pursuit of self-understanding, Cole not only began reclaiming his life, he wrote a book to help others do the same. It's called Internal External, Calming the Chaos Within, and it offers practical, relatable guidance for managing mental health and breaking free from self-sabotage. What sets Cole apart is his humility. He doesn't pretend to have all the answers, but what he does offer is real, battle-tested wisdom on how to stop distracting ourselves from our mental health and start truly healing. His message is powerful, his story is raw, and his mission is clear: to help others climb out of the darkness. Please welcome to the show, Cole Grace. Hey, how's it going, Cole?
Hey, I'm doing really well. Thank you very much. That was a wonderful introduction.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. It's fun to make them. I like to tell stories, and your guys' stories make it easy to do. So, yeah. So let's dig into a little bit about your background, man. What brought you into what brought you to the military?
So I don't have this great patriotic story about what brought me to the military, but I always was a pyro, and I loved 4th of July, blowing stuff up. My grandpa had like a black powder cannon. I was always obsessed with setting that off. And then after high school, I wanted to go to Northern Michigan University with friends of mine that were all going there. And my parents weren't going to pay for it. And so I ended up exploring options, and I found the Army National Guard. And this is July 2001. So it's like right before 9/11. So I sign up in July 2001, and then I'm in my first semester at school, and 9/11 happens, and I could have foregone and I guess not gone to boot camp at that point, but I went to boot camp, and then it wasn't until 2005 that I was deployed.
Okay. Yeah. The National Guard reserves, they all played a huge role in this. I still to this day remember that meme of the guys holding up the sign that said 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year, my ass.
Yeah, definitely. And when we went over there, we were attached to Marine units, 1st and 2nd Marines, and we're doing route clearance. So it was a lot different from what they had expected from the Nasty Guard to what was actually happening. And so we had a lot of accolades from Marines and the people that we worked for. It was a really good experience as far as, like you just said, not just being the weekend warriors.
Yeah. And for the listeners out there that don't know, route clearance is a task that sucks. Everybody hates it. I don't know of anybody that says, man, I really look forward to doing route clearance, but it is a huge importance to the people's lives that are coming behind. Is that what your primary mission was as a combat engineer with the Marines? Was you doing the route clearance for them?
Yes, this was kind of like 2005 pre EOD. They had EOD, but it wasn't ramped up enough to have EOD embedded with everybody. Mm-hmm. So we did route clearance in different AOs according to, mission plans and whatever higher up sent down, but we would clear certain AOs. And at that time we didn't have the robots. So what we would use is like a Husky, it was called. It's a metal detection, ground penetrating radar thing. It looks like a dune buggy and with wings and drives down the road and has signal jammers because that's how they set it off with typically like a walkie talkie or something. and they key the one walkie-talkie, and on the other end is the trigger. So they have this signal jammer to stop it. That thing kind of drives over the bomb, marks it, and then it checks in front and behind for secondaries or for daisy chain, which means like multiple connected. And then the next vehicle pulls up. It's called a Buffalo, and it has a big hydraulic arm on it, and has like a hand and then like a spike, so it can dig up the rounds and then spike and pull the det cord from the trigger and separate it. And then my goofy butt gets out with C4 and walks up to it, picks the rounds up, moves them off to the side like in the ditch, builds a C4 bomb on top of it, depending on how much ordnance is there. And then set that off with a time fuse and go back and make sure it's all blown up. So that was kind of our procedure. It was different.
Yeah, I mean, it is, EOD is a tough job, man. It really is. And for people out there, I don't think it's anything like what the movie, I can't remember what it was called, that was about the EOD tech.
Oh yeah, the Hurt Locker. No, I hate it. Yeah, people are always like, "Is it the Hurt Locker?" No,
nothing like that.
No,
not as exciting. You're not out there, for the most part, unless you're trying to salvage something from the device to get a signature from the or something like that. It's blow in place and move on.
Yeah, I collect the trigger for evidence and stuff to get the signature of maybe who made it, who the bomb maker was. I take that back with me. But now they use a robot, but it's not me sitting there like, do I pull the blue wire or the whatever? It's already disarmed. I'm just I'm disposing of it, so to speak. And the dangerous part was if we did it day missions, which we had to do sometimes when we're escorting Marines into or out of like their mission. I've been sniped at while I'm working on a bomb, or, had some instances where we've taken fire while I'm out and exposed, which is why they use the robot now. But yeah, it's, it keep you on your toes.
Afghanistan is good at that, man. I always tell people, the difference is between Iraq and Afghanistan is when the bomb goes off in Iraq, you can get out and look around because there's nobody there to do anything. It was all remote detonated. Afghanistan is not the case. There's usually somebody there watching, verifying.
They're going to ambush too a lot of times, right?
Yeah, it's just the difference in tactics.
And they used a lot of non-metallic explosives, which is why we had to switch to ground penetrating radar as well, because they used those fertilizer plastic bombs.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It was an ever-growing task, man. So how long? So you did that deployment. How long did you do your time and get out, or did you stay in the National Guard when you got back?
So I was over there for a year, and when I got back, I did re-up. But also when I was over there, we were looking for a better way to do the job, which ultimately ended up being the robots that you see maybe on TV now. But they tested a vehicle called the neutralizing IEDs with radio frequency. It's this massive vehicle that had like a fusion generator that created the microwaves that it would shoot out of like a satellite dish looking thing on the front. And it would try to radiate the ground, in the same concept of putting metal in a microwave. It was going to like set the bombs off without anybody having to get out. But they built this big thing, it only goes like 5 to 10 miles an hour maybe. And it doesn't have a weapon system on top of it. And you're trying to drive it around Ramadi. I'm like, this is going to get blown up in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So we use the same concept that we would use for route or convoy security, where I was in what was called the Rat Pack. We would ride a kilometer out in front of the main body of the convoy looking for ambushes or visual signs of IEDs. And so I was out in front of this vehicle for the last 90 days of my tour. And then I ended up coming home, and I had stomach problems over there after starting to use that vehicle. And I continue to have these horrible stomach episodes of pain, nausea. I've had like my gallbladder removed for having being what was called a porcelain gallbladder, but I've never had gallstones. I've had my appendix removed and a lot of different stuff afterwards, and also like 100% disabled, permanent and total now through VA. But eventually, at first it was just, they thought it was ulcers and like stuff that was going to be taken care of. And I got transferred from the unit that I was originally in to back up to the Northern Michigan one that was like 6 hours away. And I was getting sick. So they were actually giving me AWOL letters for like 6 months. And, but then I went and showed them all my paperwork, and they medically discharged me in 2008 from the military.
Wow. Yeah. So, man, that I can't even imagine the after effects. I'd never seen that. I didn't even know about that equipment. So that was something new that I just learned.
Yeah,
you
we
said
did.
Ramadi?
I was in Ramadi. It was 2005. Navy Labs made the vehicle, the NIRF system, NIRF. And we decommissioned it because it was too big to take on routes that actually had IEDs. The generator would overheat within an hour. So we'd only drive it down main supply routes. So at the time, I'm thinking this mission is cake. Like, from what I'm doing normally to doing this for my last 90 days, fine. Like, put me on that mission. I don't care. That this thing's easy. We just drive down Tampa main supply route. It'll break down within an hour and we'll be back. And, but I didn't realize that, they had to shut the thing down when we're driving under observation posts or any coalition forces.
Yeah.
And so we kind of joke, but they said we were in a far enough standoff distance. But, I'm standing up in the turret, so who knows?
Yeah. Oh, man. Man, you really got the raw deal. I was at Ramadi in 2012. And what a shithole.
Yeah, it is. There's, you don't get any celebrity or the MWR shows or whatever, the USO shows. That stuff doesn't happen there.
Nope. We lost your video feed.
Let me see what happened here. Browser lost connection. All right, where are we at exactly? Sorry.
You're back. So we were talking about how the equipment that you guys were testing in that lovely resort called Ramadi.
Oh yeah, Ramadi.
Of how it was affecting the troops. You said you did this for your last 90 days.
Yeah, we ran these missions for the last 90 days. It was like, we ran it at night. We kept it in a special hangar. So it was like, not supposed to be talked about. But one of my friends actually got a video of it. And that was kind of how I got, I'll send it to you after this, but that's kind of how I got my full disability, was through that.
Oh, wow, man. So you come back and you're going through all of the problems that you're having, not to include the red tape that you have to deal with of just trying to get anybody to believe that it was related to the military. It's not like they just say, "Oh, you got an ache and a pain. Yeah, that's on us. We'll take care of you."
Right.
Talk to me a little bit through that process, man. At what point did you realize, hey, something's going on?
So yeah, at first I had a couple instances where it happened while I was over there, and it seemed like it was like dehydration, because I'd get really bad stomach cramps, and like so they just figured I was dehydrated. I think it happened 2 or 3 times where I had to go to the medical. And so that's really what saved my ass, really, was that I had to go to the medical while I was there. And then I get back and I'm going to the emergency room, and it's the same symptoms. And so I was able to get the cervix connection that it's, I didn't have these issues before, and that it started while I was there.
Yeah.
But they didn't, being that it was such a one-off thing, it's not like, a missing limb or an injury that's, it's, you got radiation damage. Okay. It's not even a record of this vehicle, really. You have to really dig to find it, Yeah. And nobody else did this. I'm like, no, actually I was kind of like the only one that did that. And there was one other vehicle in front of me, but that gunner didn't necessarily have any issues, I don't think, that I know of. So yeah, it was very difficult to piece that all together, and I don't know what's going on. They're telling me that maybe it's a psychosomatic, that I'm, my PTSD is making me sick. And so, I'm trying to go get counseling for PTSD, but as I start to kind of work through my PTSD, I'm still getting sick. And, it was good to start working through my PTSD, and that was kind of like pulling teeth. I went and started working on my PTSD for Iraq, and then the first thing he asked me is like, about childhood, and I cussed him out. Like, I just got done disarming bombs, dude. You want to talk about my childhood? My childhood was fine. But come full circle, actually, a lot of those seemingly smaller things that happened during a time period like 0 to 5 years old, when it was more impactful than some of the things that happened in Iraq that were more intense, let's say.
Yeah. There's been a lot of studies that talk about how the traumas of our parents and our bloodline pass down.
Yeah.
Those anxieties, and maybe that's where sometimes, I'll have an anxiety attack and not even know what it's from. I'll just wake up with this doom and gloom feeling, and my chest is all tight, and maybe that's some of it. I don't know what it is, because it's just something inside me that was passed down. So I do believe that, and I do think that that makes sense. A lot of people don't understand because they can't see it. Like you said, it's not a lost limb.
Right. And it's not consistent. It's, it's like on a moving range or whatever. Some days I'm fine and you can't tell anything's wrong with me. Other days, I'm losing it. And it's like, whoa, you don't know. I'm not going to show you that part, right? Like, now that I'm being vulnerable and talking on podcasts and wrote the book, it's a little different. People know that, but before I would hide that. I'm not showing that on social media. I'm not going to post when I'm, having suicidal ideations or like sick and my stomach's going off for a week straight. I'm just going to step away. And it's, it seems it's embarrassing at times when you're going through those things. So,
well, yeah, I mean, depression alone is debilitating. I mean, that's the one thing that it fucks you up and you don't even know it's doing it.
Right.
You just can't get out of bed. You don't want to do nothing. You're just like blah. And you really can't pinpoint what it is. And you really don't want to talk to people about it, because as soldiers, we're trained, if you don't look like the guy to your left or your right, then you're the one that's messed up.
Yep.
And
yeah,
that just doesn't work. Once you get away from the military, that's great for your uniform. That's not mental health.
No, stuffing it when you're in the situation, like when I'm disarming bombs, I can't process those fear and all that emotion, but I have to eventually process it, or it'll just bubble up in ways that, like you said, that you don't even realize. You're like, what the hell is that? And it's, well, that's because you never dealt with that, before, or even like you said, from your parents, because your parents never dealt with that, and it's passed down through you. So it's really, in the book, I talk about ways to prepare for those storms, to have tools in place. So when that does hit, I know I don't feel like doing this, but I know that I need to do gratitude. I know I need to do this, my positive affirmations, and I know I need to read my mission statement and reframe this before it does start to spiral down and go for months and get worse. And you keep feeding it with more negativity, and your brain has this thing called like a reticular activating system. And so like it's your filter and what you think about, and it'll show you the things that you believe and think about. So if you're going in depression and you believe that your life sucks and that you're all this stuff, then you're going to keep seeing examples of it. And so it's ways to kind of pull yourself out of that and reset when that storm comes.
Yeah, it is. Man, I'm thinking back through the things that I went through, and man, a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
Just the isolation and everything else. It affects. It's one of the reasons why I think soldiers lose their identity is you come into this world that there was no tools given to us. The only tool in our toolbox is anger, and that's how we deal with everything. And
Yeah.
it
just doesn't work out here.
No, shift it to anger. Yeah. I don't, any uncomfortable emotions turn into anger. Yeah.
Yep. That's the only, and that's great for combat, you know.
Yeah. It doesn't serve us here though, right? You know, like that's the same thing, that perfectionism. Like the first time people got killed when I was overseas, I had you know, kind of this belief in myself because I was aloof from my childhood traumas in school. I didn't do the greatest, and my stepdad always, it wasn't wrong, but he'd tell me, you know, like you're a lollygagger, you just do the bare minimum, this, that, the other. And so when the people got killed at first, I have this now association that if you make a mistake, people die, and you don't pay attention, you don't engage, you don't fully ever, you know, you just do the bare minimum. So I really started to beat myself up and and become a perfectionist, and that really served me over there because I was really good at what I did. But then you come home and it's like, all right, how do I unwind this protection mechanism that no longer serves me? And a lot of times we don't. We just kind of like keep it there and want the world to change.
Yeah, you are 100% right. And if you go take a job with like corporate America or something, you're going to find out real quick that perfectionist and doing everything right isn't going to work. It's not going to win a popularity award because everybody around you is going to be insecure and think that you're trying to take their job. And it's just a different world.
Yeah.
You know, I don't understand the world, to be honest. And that's why I'm glad I'm retired and I don't work. But it's just frustrating to see the soldiers come out to a system that wasn't there.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm trying to get a sports psychologist to come on this show because I have a theory, right? To be at that elite of a professional job, to play professional sports, even in the high competition of college sports, right? It's not all physical. There's mental things that you have to deal with, right? The pressure of being the best, the pressure of new money that you didn't have before, the pressure of PA, you know, all that stuff. And it is something that I thought was, if we took more time preparing the soldiers mentally before combat, not just physically, would the damage be as hard to deal with when they come back? Still going to be trauma.
Yeah, it's a good question though. Because like the mental that we get in the military is that like you're too tough for it to affect you. Basically, like you know, we're making you so hard that you can, you know, you can eat nails and, you know, eat dirt and spit nails or whatever. Like nothing affects you, and it's more of like a brainwashing of a follow directions, do what you're told, but you're not told how to cope with anything, like you said.
Yep. And you know, if they do bring in somebody, they put that office right next to the commander's office so they can see who's going in there.
Yep.
And it's not a program that was designed to help. It was a check the block.
Exactly.
Because what's that?
They don't want you to, like you said, you know, you're afraid to even go seek the help that's supposedly there, because you know, everybody knows, and then now you're labeled, and now you know, you're a liability or something. It's like it's a horrible system to be in, especially if you're trying to stay in and you know, move through ranks and stuff and deal with this. I've had friends that have been on 3 tours, you know, and had people die in their arms, and they can't even go on record really of, you know, they got to go on maybe the private side to get their PTSD stuff done.
Yeah.
If they even do it.
That's, you know, it took a traumatic event in my life for me to finally accept the fact that I needed help, that everybody around me wasn't the asshole. I was the asshole in the world.
Yeah. That's a hard one when you figure that out. Yeah.
Yeah. And I did the same thing. I used TRICARE. I didn't even though I wasn't even in the military, I was like, I don't even want to go to the VA and ask. And I think that was the best thing. I think that was the best route for me because I actually got somebody to take interest and help me that didn't have any other modes of, hey, if we say this guy's got PTSD, we're going to have to pay him.
Right. Yeah. There's definitely some conflict of interest in there, even though they say they separate it, but it's definitely like a downplay. And that sucks because it takes a lot for us to ask for help. And then you go in and ask for help and you say, hey, I think I'm fucked up. And they're like, yeah, maybe 10%. And then you're like, what? Like, or no, denied. And you don't even think to appeal it because you're in such a state. And then maybe it makes you question, well, maybe I'm just a pussy or something. Like, it's a really bad system. And that's what I want people to know is that it's okay to not be okay. And the stuff that we've went through, even not being a soldier, even just life, you're going to go through things that are going to leave impressions on you, going to cause negative beliefs and negative thought patterns, and learning how to clean those up and how to identify those and speak truth into them instead of buying into that negative false belief is really important.
Yeah. You couldn't have said that better. It is by far one of the toughest things that we deal with. And it's just mind blowing, right? If the civilian health sector, right, had patients shooting themselves in the parking lot of the place that they went to, would there be an investigation done on that?
Yeah.
Pretty damn.
Yeah.
But how many soldiers have taken their life in the parking lot of a VA after being told that's all we can do for you, or there is nothing else, or and just being like, just giving up, man.
Yeah, it's hard when you come to that point and you finally ask for help after we talked about how stubborn and how kind of jaded we are towards asking for help, and then you get that answer, or you get maybe we can see you in 3 months, and it's like, what? Like, no, I'm thinking about killing myself, and they're like, yeah, well, okay, well,
when you're past thinking about it.
Yeah, here's an 800 number, and like we'll make an appointment for you in a month or two. Like, that's not going to work. Yeah, and it's sad that that's why I'm trying to give self-help things and tactics that you can use to do this on your own a little bit while you can bridge the gap and go get help. I'm not saying don't get help and just do this yourself. Like, I like EMDR, counselor therapy, and there's a lot of different modalities I talk about in the book and different ways that you can go about things. But having these tools in your toolkit is important because it's just, you get so irrational when that PTSD kicks in and it feels like it's right now is going to be forever. And it's just a very dark place to be in. And if you don't have any tools to fight that battle, like you were saying, that battle inside, I know how to fight the battle outside. I know how to be violent and how to handle a threat in a combat zone. I don't know how to very well. I'm learning and I've learned, but I didn't know how to fight that battle inside because, like you said, it's anger. How am I going to fight myself with anger? How am I going to fight myself the way I'm used to fighting? I'm gonna take myself out. And so softening the tactics and learning this new way to battle has been hard.
Yes, and coming from a guy that wrote a book about his time in the military, I have discovered that that's one of the hardest parts about healing is you have to look at yourself in the third person and then judge yourself. Mm-hmm. What were you thinking? What were you doing? Where did this come from? And you can't do it being yourself. And I think even though it took me a year because I kept putting the book down because it was just stuff I didn't want to keep going back through. Especially after the military, when I discovered what kind of asshole I really was. And the things that I was doing, it makes it even that much worse because now I'm looking at myself thinking, man, what a dick. And I'm talking about myself, but now I'm looking at it in a different set of eyes. My moods have been stable. The anger has been lowered. I can now think, process, act versus think, act, And so those things were all really big deal. At what point, for me, that point came from a time where I felt my family deserved answers on what I've been, but I wasn't ready to have a conversation about it. I just wanted to give them the information and let them do with what they wanted with it. And that's what I wrote what wasn't going to be a book. My daughter actually asked me to publish it. I was just writing something to them.
Mhm.
And so what, in your spot, where did you get to when you said, you know what, it's time that I document some of this stuff and help spread that world?
Well, there was, I don't know. The one thing is there's 95% of 90 to 95% of the stuff that decisions we make and stuff come from the subconscious.
Mhm.
And even though I consciously wanted to change things, I wasn't digging into my subconscious like we were just talking about. And then go back, and then your guilt and shame comes up when you start to become more aware, like you were just saying. And so I have the acceptance in there as well, and like a practice of repentance and forgiveness of myself and for things that I did, and learning. But for me, when I started writing the book, I had just gotten out of rehab, so I was doing the stomach thing. I'd go into the emergency room and they'd take care of the stuff, but then the opioid crisis happened, and they were super restrictive on any pain medicine. So I'd go to the hospital, and then it would be like the VA thing. They're like, all right, well, I'm sorry, you're still in pain, but we got to discharge you. That's all we can do for you. And so at that point, I'm having suicidal ideations. There's no recourse. I'm just in pain for days at a time. And eventually I find it, drugs on the street, some painkillers on the street. And I start buying those for when I get sick. And then I start just fine taking them just at other times when I'm not sick, for other reasons. So my back hurts because I was out and doing the deck all day or whatever. Well, you should take a Tylenol, not a narco. But, I started abusing it. And also, I'm looking at all the external things that are going on. I'm a GS-13 for the government, project manager, getting awards. I'm going to school, getting a 4.0. So it's not affecting me, right? Like, I'm good. This is,
You don't
whatever.
No problem.
No problem. What's the problem? I'm paying my bills. Everything's good. So, but now it's taken more when I get sick to make the pain go away. And it's getting to a point where, I have to take a maintenance dose because I'm physically addicted to it. So I have to stay on it or I'll get sick.
Yep.
And so this is not going to be good. This is not going good. This is not where I wanted to be. This is not, I know that it can be a slippery slope. So at that point, I'm going to go to rehab and try to get clean because I couldn't get off the stuff without assistance with the withdrawals and everything. And so I went for like 9 days. And this is at the time where I was telling you I had addressed the combat trauma and I was doing really well in life. So I figured that everything was okay. When I was in the rehab, though, I'm reading, I guess one of the counselors gave me a book called Unlearn Your Pain and Depression or something like that by Dr. Howard Schubner. Mm-hmm. And ends up the guy was from Michigan. I ended up seeing him clinically when I got out of there for a year or two, but the book it was just jumping off the pages at me. And it was about mind, body, and childhood and your core development years and things like that. And that was when I first kind of gave credence to childhood trauma and my trauma from the chronic illness. And so I started reading a lot of books on PTSD, like The Body Keeps the Score, or self-help, like 7 Habits, or a bunch of different books, like 20 or 30. And as I'm reading them, I'm putting certain things into practice and figuring out what works for me and trying out all these different modalities. And I'm just kind of like documenting it. This is for maybe some of my friends that I served with. I'm thinking about how can I help now that I'm figuring this stuff out. I didn't want to work directly one-on-one with people because I don't know if I could handle having somebody I'm working with commit suicide, or the ups and downs and taking on their trauma. And so I start writing this into a book, and I'm starting to a free write to go over some of my story, to kind of release some of the things and unlock some of the things and go through my subconscious and figure out where some of the stuff comes from. And so I'm writing it out, and I'm just going to structure it into a book. But as I'm writing that book, I start to have imposter syndrome feelings, like I'm still having issues. I still have issues. So I'm like, who are you to tell people what to do? You're not a psychologist. You're still fucked up. You're still going through your issues. Look at what just happened yesterday. You just went off because the dog was, whatever. Yep. And so I felt unworthy of having advice for people on how to live life. But then, I had to use some of the tactics in my own book after I shelved that book in like 2018, 2019 until 2025. And I was married, and my marriage was going through problems since 2022 or something like that. And so, I didn't feel very good about finishing Calming the Chaos Within when I was having a very chaotic time. But after the divorce, I picked the book back up to see how far I'd gotten, and, just whatever. And as I'm reading it, I'm starting to like do some of the things that I was saying to do in there that I hadn't been doing over the years. And it's working. I'm starting to feel better, and I'm realized that I have like 80-90% of the book written. I'll finish like maybe a chapter in the intro. So I did that, and then I published it. And I think from the time that I started writing it again and publishing it was only like 3 months, but it was shelved for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. And, this sounds exactly like what one of my last guests had a few weeks ago. He wrote a book about breathing techniques, and that everybody's got weeds in their head. Think of it as your thoughts are fertilizer, right? And you can either do nothing with that fertilizer and just wallow around in a bunch of shit, or you can put that fertilizer to use and grow something, right? He said, but these weeds will pop up, and they got eyeballs, and they see what feeds them and what hurts them. And that's why when you get ready to go to the gym, you have that brief thought about, I really don't want to do this, because that physical exercise kills them, and that isolation, lazy part feeds them, and they want to feed.
Path of least resistance.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's kind of exactly what you're saying too. Your weeds took you away from what was working when you were writing that book, and you quit doing those techniques, and they started getting more and more feed. And the stronger you got, the worse the thoughts got. The depression starts again. That cycle can come back. It's not like a injury where once you're fixed, you can be good.
No, you constantly got to weed the garden.
Absolutely.
And so, that's kind of like the tactics. Yeah, you definitely how to go in there and pull those weeds. But like you said, it's not just a one-time thing. They're going to grow back. There's always going to be maintenance, and there's going to be new weeds. And some of the weeds for me were, limiting beliefs from my childhood of like, you're not worthy, or you're not, these little underlying things that come from like my dad and mom divorcing when I was young, and my dad leaving, abandonment things, or, whatever. There's a lot of things that these little limiting beliefs come up, and then they generate your thoughts. Your beliefs generate your thoughts, right? And so I believe that I'm not worthy, so now I have all these negative thoughts about the thing that I'm trying to do, that's a positive thing, that's going to, like you said, exterminate some of these weeds, and it's going to grow flowers instead, and the weeds don't like that.
I'm just kind of going through some of these questions that I had, and one of them that caused it talks about exactly what we're talking about now is when you came back to the manuscript, right? There had to have been a change internally that said, you know what? I think I want to do this. and it was that positive thought. And I'm sure the weeds was like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
You don't.
Mm-hmm.
But what was it that made you decide to go back and complete it? Because I know how it feels. It's a wall, man.
Yeah.
And when you think about doing it and you want to do it, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be able to do it.
Yeah. Well, I'm a Christian, and I felt this calling from God when I first initially started writing the book that you need to do this.
Yep.
And so I started doing it, and then I was like, you mean I need to do this for myself so that I can feel better and I don't need to publish it? Is that what you mean? And so, whatever, but I kept getting the feeling even after, you need to finish the book. Yeah. And so I begrudgingly opened it back up and did it. And like I said, it only took 3 months. And then I kind of was like, in my own ignorance a little bit, I was like, okay, I finished it. Like, are you happy? He's like, you're not done yet, dude. I got to go talk about, all this stuff. This is just the beginning. So it was a feeling of a higher calling, of a purpose, that turning the pain into purpose, and having, getting over that, the self deprecating, the self hatred almost, or doubting nature. And a lot of the things that I projected were my own beliefs on, and I project like, these people are going to judge me, and these people are going to think that, and none of that happened. And I got way better. I was way harder on myself than anybody else. And it was because of those internal beliefs that I held that I had to go through and clean up. And that's what I believe leads to self-sabotage. It leads to this, procrastination of this, I'm not good enough to do it. So if I don't do it, then there's no chance of me failing. Yeah,
it's definitely the safe side. That type A personality is, as I have learned, also comes with a high sense of, you may be super competitive and super good at what you do because you dedicate and you're absorbed in it, but it also comes with a lot of insecurities as well. And the moment that house of cards starts to crumble, man, it can be disastrous for the type A personality.
Definitely. Yeah. I think, a lot of times you look externally to, especially if you're I call it like a functioning traumatic. And so you look for things to put your energy into to distract yourself from. I'm a top performer at work. I'm getting all the awards and all these things. But like you said, the things typically come pretty easy for type A personalities. And when something doesn't, it puts a little chink in that armor. And it's like, nah, I don't even want to try it then. I don't even want to do that, because you have this false sense of identity in your performance instead of in your internal. So as soon as that external isn't there and you're not good at something, you feel like not good as a person. It's weird.
Yeah. No, you are 100% right. And I can take you through multiple episodes where I've had other veterans say the same thing. And when you get multiple people saying the same thing, the more people that say it, the more it's probably true, right?
Right.
And I think it's definitely it's hard to combat, because when you go get help, the person sitting across from you, not only do they not know or understand what you went through, but hell, they don't even know you.
Right.
Know the you before you had the illness, and they sure as hell don't know the new you.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes it even tougher. Yeah,
it does. Yeah, they don't know what baseline is for you, really. So yeah, that's a good point.
So the core theme of your book is that internal healing creates external transformation. Can you unpack what that means for the listeners?
Yeah. So the internal is greater than external. So, and what I'm saying in that is that I have focused externally on the checklist that society tells you is going to make you happy, like getting the house, getting the good job, getting married, whatever it is. And I've put all my energy into that. And then when I get there, it's temporary happiness. And then it's back to the same baseline. And then the next goal that'll make me happy comes up. Like, okay, I live in Costa Rica. Like maybe moving to Costa Rica will make me happy. And then you get depressed in Costa Rica, and then you're like, wow, you're a real POS. You can't even be happy in Costa Rica. So like it's the fact that if I work on my internal state, which is why am I depressed, and my negative thoughts, my negative beliefs, my negative self-talk and things like that, then I will be able to better enjoy and attain success in the external world. By focusing on the things that you can control, like your thoughts and your mindset and those things, you can actually influence the things that you want to change that you don't have control over, like your external world. And by working on yourself and your beliefs, like a lot of times you attract what you believe. If you believe that you're not good enough, then you're going to do things that are going to self-sabotage, and you're not going to be good enough.
Yeah.
If you don't believe you're lovable, then you're going to go into situations feeling like people already don't like you, and the way that you act is going to cause them not to like you. And so by working on these internal things, you can really shape your reality, your external world, instead of trying to change somebody else or trying to, move and change your location, change this, change that, and then I'll be better. No. You got to look internal. And yeah, maybe that if you live in a city where there's a lot of drugs, and it might be good to get out of that city while you do the work, but you got to do both. You can't just move and it's going to be better. Yeah. Wherever you go, there you are.
Yep. It's not the future that you've got to change. It's the past.
Yeah.
And that is definitely a tough thing to do. But you said it the best, at the end of the day, if you don't try, you can't fail. And that attitude, it doesn't work well with type A people.
Right.
And it just adds to it,
It does, that self-judgment.
It's brutal, because now you can't even say you're full of shit because you're saying it to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But so let me ask you this: your how can someone become to reprogram their subconscious? Right? I mean, it just doesn't happen overnight. These traumas, as you said, came from your dad all the way back when you was a child, saying you wasn't good enough.
Mm-hmm.
So now you got years and years and years worth of wiring. Think of your brain as a ball of yarn. So all these are tied together, and that's what your belief is, right? I mean, you can't just do push-ups and it's fixed. So
right.
What would you recommend?
So that's the thing, and you just said it perfectly. Like, you're not going to go to the gym one time, come back, lift up your shirt, and have a six-pack.
Okay.
And so in the neuroplasticity and the neuro side of the brain, these learned neural pathways, and they're stronger around trauma, and they're stronger the longer that they've been in place. So your brain creates these programs. And like I said, sometimes, like, my perfectionism program was created in Iraq, but then it keeps running years later when it's no longer. So I need to go back and reprogram that, but it's not going to be easy, because it was around a life or death situation. And so it's a lot of repetition. And what I do is I use positive affirmations. And so some of the times when I was working through, like, the road rage thing, is immediately when I feel that, is that you're safe. You're not in Iraq anymore. They're not a threat. And to walk myself down. And so whatever the belief is that, like, the anti-belief of that, or the truth. And so I have to map back. So I'm getting road rage. At first, it's, why am I getting road rage? Well, because that person's an asshole and they don't know how to drive. And that's why. It's because of this situation that's happening right now. But yeah, that's true. There's a stimulus happening right now, but why are you wanting to pull this person out of the car and beat them? Well, that the overreaction is coming from something deeper, and that's coming from not feeling safe because of what you did in Iraq. So you have to unwind that ball of yarn, so to speak. And once you get to that piece where you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm an extra nice guy, and I'm really, like, a people pleaser, because when I was growing up, my mom, I had to try to make sure she was in a good mood, because she was a single mom and worked a lot or something. And so I was used to like making sure she was in a good mood so that everything went smooth or whatever.
Yep.
And so you have to kind of map that stuff back. And then I create a positive affirmation around it, about like being authentic and about not having to please everybody and being true to myself. And I am worthy. I am lovable. I'm confident. And so these things that I repeat them in the morning. I also do gratitude practice, and I write things that I'm grateful for every day. And I created a mission statement, which has like the roles that I am, like a Christian male, a writer, a speaker, author, speaker, and how I want to show up in those roles. And then when the storm does come, and then I also do the repentance and forgiveness, where when I wake up, I forgive myself. I apologize for things where I went off course or I didn't act according to the way I want to act. And then I forgive other people and myself, so I don't hold grudges, like all the way back to my parents, and that helps with the guilt and shame. And then when the storm comes, I have to remember to do those things, not just like on my routine to just start doing them right now. To wake up depressed, then let's pull out all the things. Read your mission statement, do your affirmations, read back through your gratitude journal, because like I said, everything feels so hyper focused in the moment. If you can break yourself back out and be like, oh, okay, well, I'm grateful. This happened last week. This happened. It can remind you that your life doesn't suck, and that, this is just one little thing in the whole spectrum of the world, or maybe it's a few things that have stacked up, whatever, that there are good things as well. Because, and so reading through those things, it actually primes my reticular activating system to look for things that I'm grateful for, to look for things that I'm happy about. And, so reframing things, like, a lot of times victim mentality happens. Like I get a flat tire and it's like the world's against me or something. It's like, no, you just got a flat tire. It's okay. Change the tire and like, it'll be okay. But sometimes that can be I like to be angry. Like you said, you can get addicted to that chemical cocktail release of anger. And so you can prime your brain to look for anger, look for reasons to be mad because you want to get that drug hit real quick. And, so I always just kind of the awareness of my subconscious and where these thoughts are coming from, instead of just, taking the thoughts at face value.
Yeah. The biggest takeaway from what you just said is the ability to let shit go, right? You spilled your coffee this morning. You had a flat tire on your way to work. Those two things are not related.
Mm-hmm.
One did not cause the other. And to let the rest of your day be ruined over 30 minutes worth of problems is crazy.
Yeah.
But sometimes, and this isn't just a veteran thing. This goes along with just about everybody. Letting go of the things that you can't control.
Yeah.
Is the hardest part. And until you do that, you're not going to be able to move on. I control that the tire went flat.
Mm-hmm.
I could have controlled the coffee spilling, but I can't take it back. I can't fix it now. The mess has been cleaned up. It's done. Move on. And that's the hard part.
It is. And I think a lot of times, like with the beliefs too, your brain loves to be right.
Yep.
So if you have a negative belief, man, watch out, because if you believe you have bad luck, your brain is going to show you all the bad luck that you have. So that's where I do the positive affirmations. I switch it. If I find that I find myself saying, God, I always have bad luck. Okay. I need to know I don't always have bad luck, and like flip that and change that belief using a positive affirmation, because with those beliefs, you are going to, it's not going to change your reality, but what you see in your reality and how you see it is going to change. It's either going to be a negative view or a positive view. And so if you look at having more of a positive mindset, you could think to yourself and reframe, maybe getting the flat tire saved me from getting in an accident or something like that, like the burnt toast theory. There's plenty of ways to reframe something, or to be like, at least I'm not getting shot at or blown up. I just need to change a freaking tire. Calm down. It's okay.
Yep. You're 100% correct. And I think it's, awesome stuff. And I think it's great that you're able to put it in a book that somebody can buy and have another lifeline, and open it back up when things are going wrong, to remind them of the steps that need to be done to get through it. It's not, everybody's triggers are different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, depression is depression.
Right.
The symptoms may be different. What triggers you may be different than what triggers me. How much I can take versus how much you can take. How long it takes me to heal versus you. All those are different things.
Mm-hmm.
And the root cause comes from the same thing, trauma. Right.
Right. Yeah.
So I think, being able to move on is the biggest part of this. And the ability to accept that we're no longer in combat. We can't control everything like we used to. When you were over there, you tried to control your environment by the routes you took, the tactics that were used, the weapons that was used. All these were tools used to control my environment of where I'm at, whether it be predator feed or, aircraft support or whatever. You don't have those abilities now. In a world that you can't control, shit's going to happen.
Right. And that's one thing too I like about having the mission statement, especially for soldiers. We're very mission driven. And a lot of times, we just feel like it's kind of aimless. And so this gives you something to focus on. And I read it. And when I read it and I know, I'm like, damn, I'm not, I need to do this instead of this. Or like when I don't feel like going to the gym, it's like right there, I said I'm going to the gym. It's more like that reinforcement of what you want to do and how you want to show up. And it helps to have that and to write that out. Because even when I wrote that out, asking myself those questions, I really didn't have an answer. I had to think about it. It wasn't like a readily available answer of, well, how do you want to show up as a Christian man? Like, what? I don't know. I had to think about it, and so I had to be really intentional. And now that I've been intentional about setting that plan, I can use that to, guide my decisions instead of relying on my autopilot, the path of least resistance that happens automatically.
Yeah. No, absolutely, man. Cole, I think you are onto something, and I think you got a lot of information that not just the veteran community out there, but just people in general. It is no secret that America is having, a mental health crisis. Just with your theory base, let's take the 2018 election when everybody was melting down. You either loved Trump or you hated Trump, and now the lines are divided, and you either hated the other people or you weren't on our team. And all of these negativities that was just being fed to us, if we didn't already have some traumas and some mental health issues, we would have been able to see through some of that rhetoric and say, not really realistic.
Right. Go talk to your neighbor, or you know what I mean? Like when I look at all the news and everything, and then I go talk to somebody and whatever it, and I see that it's not as bad as it, the constant being in the news and watching it every day and getting that negative programming from there too. And then your social media feed, it can definitely get negative from all sides when the algorithm and it's hard with all of the ways that they use media to program you and to push agendas and to get feelings out of you and to change behaviors and stuff like that it's psychological warfare. It's very manipulative, and a lot of times we just kind of it's a distraction. It's we have the internal problems and we're looking for something external to be mad about. Like, That's the whole premise of the book, is to, when you're getting upset about the external things that you can't control, about the presidential election, about the things that are going on, look internally and work on some things that you can control, and it'll make it a little easier to calm yourself down and to not have the anxiety and depression. There's the point in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People where he talks about there's like 4 quadrants, or there's your circle of concern and your circle of influence. Your circle of concern are things that concern you, but you don't have control over, like the presidential elections and politics and whatever. And your circle of influence are things that you do have control over, how you behave, how you react, how you think. And so the premise is the more time you spend in your circle of concern, the bigger your circle of concern will get.
Yeah.
And the more time that you spend inside of your circle of influence, the bigger your circle of influence will get. So spend that time working internally, and you will be able to better affect and influence those things in the external that you're so worried about.
Yeah. As much as, like you just said, I think negativity and I bring negativity to me and negative happens. And then I say, yep, I was right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can be the other way too.
Mm-hmm.
If you think positive and when good things happen, you can say, well, I was right.
Yes. You prime your brain to look for the positives. And that's a great way to put it, way to articulate that.
That's it, man. Well, I'm going to bring up our closing. I like to end the show with some fun questions, Let me ask this. If you got this book and it became a #1 bestseller and you want to celebrate, what is the go-to meal? What are you cooking for yourself or DoorDashing or whatever?
Oh, I would have to go with either like a brick oven pizza, probably brick oven pizza would be my go-to. I'm a pizza head.
Yeah, I like pizza too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. If you could have that dinner with one person, dead or alive, who would it be?
Ooh, dead or alive. Oh man, I don't know. I would have to. I don't know. I'd go with like maybe one of the old philosophers. I'd maybe talk to like Plato or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that being a good conversation, actually.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Absolutely. Well, brother, I'm going to bring you forward and give you the opportunity to tell everybody where they can get your books and where they can follow you and find out new stuff that's coming on.
All right. You can get the book on Amazon. If you just search Cole Grace, it'll pull it up. Internals Greater Than External, Calming the Chaos Within. If you're not much of a book person, I don't have it on audiobook yet, but I have been doing video breakdowns of the chapters on my YouTube channel, and that's at cgrace21. And you can follow me on Instagram or Facebook. I think the Instagram one is at cgrace2180_. And then on Facebook, just look up Cole Grace. But I don't do much content on, I put the podcast that I was guests on in a playlist on YouTube as well. And I post them on my Instagram and Facebook. But other than that, it's basically just life, my Facebook and Instagram of living in Costa Rica. But to get the book is on Amazon, search Cole Grace. You can catch me on YouTube at cgrace21.
All right. Yeah, man. And for all the listeners, if you're like trying to write this down, all those links will be in the bio. I'll make sure that it's easy for you just to click and find Cole and get the book. So, well, brother, I appreciate you coming on. I'm going to go and throw the exit video. If you don't mind hanging on, we'll chat a little bit after.
All right, sounds good.
Y'all take care, be safe, and don't let the day kick your ass. Kick the day's ass.